The one thing that I can tell you that is undoubtedly true is that relationships are tough. Or we can be a little more optimistic and say relationships can be tough. And just because they're tough doesn't mean that we shouldn't take them on. Just because they can be difficult doesn't mean that they always have to be difficult. And just because it's something that may challenge you or test you doesn't mean you should tap out and walk away. And that's what a lot of people do. And the two things that I can give you before we get into the story that wraps up this whole series about relationships and being a highly sensitive person, or just being somebody that is feeling highly sensitive or vulnerable, is that relationships are definitely something that starts with us. We can't give anything to anybody that we haven't given ourselves. You can't give a situation patience, time, and compassion until you've given yourself patience, time, and compassion. You can't give grace to really anything, truly give grace to something until you've truly given it to yourself. And you can't give the freedom to be what it's gonna be to anything until you've given yourself the freedom to be who you are. And until we give ourselves those things or learn how to give those things to ourselves, it's gonna be, as a famous superhero would say, it's gonna be an ice skate uphill if we try to do that. And the second thing I'll say that people get caught up in with relationships is externalism. We really, really think that if we write the letter, if we do the thing, if we say the thing, if we give the thing, if we have the thing, or if we buy the thing, then we can have all the things. You really need to go back to be, do, have. Who you are being is going to address what you are doing, which is going to address what you have. It is not what you do then results in what you have, then results in who you be. It's who you're being first, then goes to what you're doing. It influences your action, will then turn into what you have is just a byproduct. So whatever you have, that's an effect. It's a byproduct. By the time you get to the things that you have or the things that are coming your way, it's because you've been being a person that magnetizes those things. You attract those things to you, like they're going to come to you. That's just a fact. And by the time it happens, it's like when you go to a restaurant and the plate comes out to you. That's not because you just snapped your fingers and it showed up. You started off with the intent to go to that restaurant. You showed up to the restaurant. You ordered the thing. You deliberated while you looked at the menu. Then you ordered the thing. They then cooked the thing. You see, there's a cause leading up to the effect. And when you're just caught up in the effects, an effect can't make an effect. You have to be the cause. You have to get back into the cause. So that the video when we talked about no contact, I will admit when I first learned about no contact, I was like, oh man, this is pretty slick. All I got to do is just not do anything, and then they come back to me. And that was such a externalized way of thinking about it. However, that's just not the reality. It's not the reality at all. And I think the biggest thing that I've seen so far with this series that stuck with people is those closest to you can hurt you the most. And I go back to the beginning of this video. Just because a relationship is tough, just because a relationship challenges you, just because it is difficult at times, doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile. Doesn't mean that you can't do it. And relationships, whether they be romantic, friendships, coworkers, or collaborators, or family, can be probably some of the most joyous things we'll ever experience in life. And to have those things, you have to be somebody who is willing to give grace, space, and compassion, and all these things that you want in your life. You want the world to reflect what you're giving it. And so we'll get into this later on, serve and then sell. And I would just say serve, but the idea is that you serve first. Serve first and be the person that serves, and what do you want to serve? And so getting into this very quickly, the video that stuck with a lot of people, those closest to you can hurt you the most. It sounds like a cautionary tale. Those closest to you can hurt you the most. Therefore, get close to nobody. I definitely know some people that have made that a life story or made that a momentary story. I've definitely taken it on as a story. But like, man, that person really hurt me. I'll never let anybody get close to me. And the trick is that it feels paradoxical. And I'll give you this story very quickly to explain that and wrap this whole series up, which will hopefully give you some insight as to what a relationship or what a friendship or just a connection can be. I was a paraprofessional at a school, and my job many times as a paraprofessional was to ensure that a student could reintegrate into their homeroom. So usually the students that I worked with had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 strikes, and they were, on whatever the final strike was that the administration, said that they had, and they would bring me in, and I'd be a one-on-one. We would talk things out, and just, work through whatever was coming their way throughout the day that was throwing them off their path, just to be a student in school and have joy and have friends and just kick it. And learn. Learning is always, I think learning is a byproduct of just being in the school. You're gonna learn things whether you open the book or not. You're learning from the friends around you, the construction of the school, the teachers, how they treat each other. And so I was kind of like a pair that stepped in exigent circumstances. And so, and then sometimes during recess, I would just get put on these, I want to say missions, because it just like put on an assignment just to make sure that certain parts of the recess area were, stayed as, peaceful as it could be and organized as it could be. And one day I was assigned to a student. And the assignment that was given to me from the overhead para was student B, who you are in charge of, or just not in charge of, but just to look after, cannot be within 10 feet of student A. And so I said, who's student A? And they pointed to student A over there. I said, oh, okay. Just make sure that they don't get close to each other, because then, and I was like, okay, all right, fair enough. I looked after student B, and already off the bat, I knew that something was going on. I knew something was off, or I was not given all the information. And I think it was for, reasons that, when you're working in a bureaucracy like that, people don't have a lot of time and they don't want to divulge all the stuff. They're just like, hey, do this, don't ask me why, go. It's like, oh, okay. And so we're outside, it's cold, everybody's bundled up, and student B is like, running around. Everything's pretty chill for the first quarter of recess. And then student B is like, hey, could you just go over to student A and tell me what they're up to? And I was like, what? Are we passing notes? We need to send carrier pigeons to this other person? And they're like, no, I just want to know what they're up to. That's all, this, whatever. And this, mind you, these kids are 3rd, 4th grade, so you're pretty young. And I'm like, I can't do that. I was told explicitly you're to have no contact during recess with student A. And they're like, oh, okay. So they go about playing. All of a sudden, I look, we're hanging out, whatever, and playing a game, lava, the ground is lava. And student A out of nowhere is just 5 feet away from everybody, hanging out. All of a sudden, they're in the game. And I'm like, dude, where'd you come from? And they're like, oh, I was just, very, very just aloof. And I get what the game is that's going on here. And I was like, dog, we gotta move 10 feet. At least we gotta have you on the other side of the recess playground. And they're like, oh, my bad. Oh, sorry. Anyway, so they move over, and I'm like, what the heck? These people are very slick. And so recess plays out, and these two keep trying to cross paths, just like, whoops. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I recess wraps up, and, I think at one point they even, they ran into each other and they were talking. They were just having a conversation. And even the gestures got a little bit whoa, and almost like an argument. And I was like, y'all, I have to have you. We need, that was the rule. And they're like, oh, okay. And so they back up, and they go back into the school. And then I go back to one-on-ones and being in the hall, escorting students, from here to there. And I see student A and student B just hanging out. They're just walking, talking. I'm like, oh, interesting. And I go back to the lead para, and I said, what was that all about? Why did you want me to separate these two during recess? And the lead para was like, those two are the best of friends. They have been connected at the hip since kindergarten or whatever it is. They do everything together. They know each other almost more than anybody else knows them. And it's cool during class and like hall time or like in class. But when recess happens, because of the influx of other like social influences and everybody's out here and, you know, who said what, he said, she said, they said, blah, 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 blah. It can turn into cataclysmic fights and tears and things that drag into the second half of the day. And we're just trying to mitigate the drama at recess. And I said, what? That is profound. I would have never thought that. Would have never known that. And the lead para was like, it has happened so many times that we've had to have, this is just something that we know now. They just can't kick it. And when they get to the point that they can have a recess with no drama, cool, they can hang out. But until then, it can't happen. It says they're their greatest friends and also their greatest adversaries at certain points in time. And I thought about that. I thought about my friendships growing up, and I thought about all of that. And I do remember that. I remember having like some of the most grittiest arguments with friends. I remember fights breaking out amongst friends in middle school, like at recess. I remember one of my best friends to this day. We are still best of friends. That we had an argument and that boy judo tossed me so quickly. Like this was in 6th or 7th grade. And I think we didn't talk for like a year. And it was just, it hurt. I mean, not just a judo toss, but I mean, it hurt that he did it. It wasn't because it was just anybody. It was because it was my friend. And I was like, I can't believe that happened. But also, I can't believe I charged him too. I can't believe that we got into this situation where we were, you know, so like heated that we were like, you know, and I want to say to you that, yes, those closest to you can hurt you the most. And also, those are the connections that you'll forever be in a journey to unravel, to build, to grow. And even though my friend and I are still best friends today, best of friends, I don't want to say best or like, you know, there's only one best, there's several best. Sometimes people are there for a season, and although everybody's doing their best, that doesn't mean that their best should remain in your life. And I say that with you to like make the determination. I remember we talked about family earlier in these videos, and the thing I kicked off with first was you were under no obligation to speak to anybody, to have contact with anybody. You're under no obligation whatsoever. And that being said, you get to make up, you know, who's in your social circle. You get to kind of call the shots of who's your family, who's your friend. And in that happening, this is curated by you. You get to make those choices, and you get to figure out what you value and what are principles that you do not bend or break for at all. And in this particular case, this kind of this universal law, those closest to you can hurt you the most. It's also, those are where some of the most fruitful friendships are. And the hurt may be it's because this person reflects you and you see yourself in them, or you saw a past version of yourself in them, or you saw a future version of yourself that you might want to be in them. All that being said, you're taking a risk in being connected with other humans. And that risk is the same risk you take by being alive every day. I wrote this in a poem after a dear family friend passed away. It was, we take the risk every day just by being alive. You know, being alive is risky. It was a Jim Rohn. It's like, it was like going into the stocks is risky. Trying to get a promotion is risky. It's all risky. And then he says, life is so risky, you'll never get out of here alive. I love Jim Rohn's cadence. I gotta say, like, he is something else. He's a force. And the point of this story, though, get to the end of this to wrap up this whole series, is that these two students were very early on into understanding who they were, or what it means to be human, or what it means to be a friend, or what it means to be even an enemy. And here they were navigating this. Although it caused them pain, although it caused them joy, they sought after the thing that was the connection. There's nobody to say why they did it, or who's to say why anybody becomes friends or becomes in a relationship or chooses to speak to the family that they choose to speak to. It's up to you. And when you understand the parameters and laws of it, when you understand that you can't take a breath without giving a breath, when you understand that you can't really expect anything from anybody that you haven't given yourself, you'll be able to be a better friend, supporter, partner, whatever that means. And when you get to that place, well, then the whole world opens up, right? The whole world opens up. And it turns into less a question of, will this relationship be successful or not? It turns more into, well, how much love am I giving to myself that I can then provide to this situation? Am I putting in my bucket before I'm putting in this? Am I able, what kind of friend am I? What kind of brother am I? What kind of son am I? What kind of community member am I? How can I leave this situation better than when I entered into it? And I think those are the really important questions, but you have to get to a space of self-sustainability and self-esteemic sustainability first before it even goes there. So this series leaves many questions. I think this series this video alone has more questions than it does answers, but I hope the story can help you. I hope that my experience can help you as well. And the last thing that I'll leave with you here is just this small personal story. And I think I've said this one before, but I was in gymnastics and I was super nervous to do this competition. I had a floor routine, and I was visibly shaking. And parents were there, people I'd never seen before. I didn't really know what was up, but all these people were there. And my coach saw me and he was like, "Hey, can I talk to you real quick?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And I'm like 11 or 12 at this point, so just for context. And he said, "Hey, you're nervous, right?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "I want to tell you, there's more people here that don't know you than people that do." And I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Your teammates that you've been practicing and tumbling with, those are the people that mean something to you, right?" I was like, "Absolutely, man. Man, this is so cool that everybody's here." And he's like, "Those are the people that are probably making you nervous. However, all these other people, they don't know you. So you don't know them. And you'll probably never see them again. So who cares?" And I was like, oh. And for me, the thing that I read from that was the people that you choose who matter to you, those are the people that sometimes you want to shine the brightest for. And the biggest thing at the end of it, and this is the turn in this whole series, was I was nervous for myself. I was very nervous for myself. I was taking a risk, and I didn't want to embarrass myself to myself. Does that make sense? It's the relationship you have with yourself first that then leads to the relationships you have with others. And at the core, it was me. Outside of that, it was the homies that I've been practicing with. And then way outside of that, it was the people that I had never met before. And I know that we want to shine bright for ourselves. We want to show up for ourselves, first and foremost. And when we go back to the playground, the point of me being a para and making sure that so-and-so student B didn't come in contact with student A was so that student B could get a relationship with themselves. Figure that out first, and then step into the arena with student A. Figure out who you are, and then enter into these things. An effect cannot make an effect. Only a cause can. And the cause starts with you. So let all that sink in. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you in the next video. And yeah, if there are any stories or any memories that this video has struck up, please put them in the comments below. And then also, if there's any pointers you have for people to navigate these relationships, put them in the comments below. I mean, just so everybody can start helping each other in this conversation. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you in the next one.